Discover the hidden and inspiring ways Americans transformed their free time in the Roaring '20s. In the heart of New York City, Clara rushed through the bustling streets, dodging flappers and gentlemen on the run. The jazz notes from nearby speakeasies danced in her ears while her mind spun, consumed by the demands of her day. A waitress during the day, a laundress at night, Clara's life was a ruthless cycle of survival, one she navigated with grit and a racing heart. Her thoughts flickered to her son, Tommy, a soft, timid boy with ashen cheeks and a persistent cough. He dreamed of soaring above the city, exploring the world beyond their cramped apartment, but his asthma held him captive. Every wheeze still echoed in her mind, a reminder of the fragile role of mother and provider. And as her dreams began to dull under societal expectations, her determination wavered, teetering on the edge of disillusion. One evening, after a grueling shift at the laundry, Clara stumbled across an old, dusty sketchbook in the corner of her father's forgotten room. Its frayed edges and yellowing pages beckoned to her, each drawing a vivid reminder of the ambitious architect he had once been. There, among the sketches, stood the lens of her childhood dreams, a buried passion for art that she'd let slip through her fingers. The designs were a testament to notions and stories yet unlived, reigniting a familiar longing in her chest. She would steal quiet moments as the city buzzed around her, pouring her heart into recreating her father's visions. As a vibrant undercurrent of creativity surged in the streets, Clara found sanctuary in the shadowy corners of a local jazz bar, where the air pulsed with life and the scent of whiskey mingled with hope. Hidden art classes thrived in this warm chaos, a contrast to her daily grind. Here she met Al, a gentle soul whose own dreams of artistry echoed in the faint strokes of paint on his canvas. They encouraged each other, their bond fattening on the whispers of ambition. Yet Clara felt the weight of her family's scrutiny. They frowned upon her growing passion, deeming it frivolous. Would she abandon her son's needs for her own aspirations? Did she dare chase the shadow of her father's legacy while wrestling with their morose expectations? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Mounting tension wrapped around Clara as her paintings began to draw attention, culminating in an invitation to a local art exhibit. Yet, amidst the thrill, an architect approached, a figure of recognition who saw promise in her work, extending a mentorship. It was an opportunity to finally break free from the constraints suffocating her family. But there was a price. He insisted she leave behind the very ties that bound her, a family rooted in tradition. Clara felt the tug of war within her soul, sweat bead on her brow as fears bubbled up. Could she forsake the only world she ever knew? In that moment, a revelation struck. Hidden truths about her father's own struggle arose like the stubborn whiff of smoke from a jazz bar. Clara's breath quickened, her stomach tightened. She would stand at the precipice of a decision that would not only reshape her destiny, but also influence the fragile tether between her and her son. Could she follow her dreams, defiantly clashing with familial duty? Or would her aspirations fade further into the shadows? All she could hear in that swirling cacophony was the relentless question echoing within. Was she willing to sacrifice everything for the promise of what might be? A maelstrom of thought swept through Clara's mind as she clutched the invitation to the art exhibit, its corners crinkling under her anxious grip. Her heart raced as she stood on the cusp of opportunity and obligation, feeling the urge to flee but anchored by her responsibilities. The flicker of hope she'd found in her art seemed to illuminate paths obscured by doubt. Yet the shadows of her family's disappointment loomed ever closer. A part of her yearned to cast aside the burden of tradition, to embrace the bold strokes on canvas that sang of her father's unfinished symphony. But the other half, the sensible, dutiful half, shrieked in protest. Would it be selfish to pursue her passion when Tommy's delicate health was at stake? The idea of abandoning him for a fleeting dream was a torment she wrestled with in silence, each thought a jab of guilt. The next morning, Clara rose early, the sunlight fighting through the grime of her apartment window. Tommy's sleepy cough filled the room, a stark sound that reminded her of her purpose, the all-consuming role of being his mother. She glanced at the sketches she had haphazardly strewn about her tiny kitchen table. It was more than just art. It was a lifeline, a whisper of freedom in a world that often felt too confining. What would her father have hoped for? Would he have desired her to adhere to the pale specter of duty over the vibrant colors of passion? Shaking off the uncertainty, Clara ventured into the streets of Manhattan, her mind a cacophony of thoughts. Each passer-by embodied a piece of possibility. A flapper giggling as she danced down the sidewalk, or a man in a slick suit with dreams etched on his face. It was within this world of rhythm and ambition that Clara felt she could either dissolve into obscurity or finally awaken the spirit that lay dormant within her. Days turned into weeks, and each moment she spent painting transformed their apartment into a small canvas of creativity. With every brushstroke, she navigated the tension between her role as a mother and her burgeoning identity as an artist. Al would sometimes join her, exchanging ideas and pushing the boundaries of their collaborative imaginations. They would lose themselves in debates about light and shadow, and she found refuge in his unwavering belief in her talent. But as Clara's confidence flourished, the disapproval from her family only solidified, manifesting in disapproving glances and hushed criticism. One evening, a confrontation erupted over dinner, fueled by her mother's thinly veiled resentment. "You think you're an artist now? Your son needs a stable home, not your whims," her mother hissed. The words felt like knives, slicing through the delicate fabric of Clara's resolve. A part of her wanted to shout back, to proclaim the importance of dreams, but she remained silent, caught in the undertow of familial loyalty. Each encounter with her family became a battleground, and Clara felt the walls closing in. She found solace in the space between art and motherhood, but the pressure intensified, testing her dedication to both roles. The exhibition loomed closer, a deadline binding her future. She needed to understand the price of her aspirations, confronting the stark reality that pursuing her passion was tearing at the seams of her existing life. That night, Clara could hardly sleep, lying restlessly in bed, torn between the potential of showcasing her work and the aching dread that found its roots in familial expectations. Beneath the silence of the city, a sense of clarity washed over her. As she drifted between consciousness and dreams, a whisper drew her into the depths of her ambition with renewed strength. The time had come to confront not only her family, but also her own fears. The decision awaited at dawn, but as she prepared to face her family once more, the voice inside her roared, embracing the ideal of who she truly wished to be. In that pivotal moment, Clara understood that she would no longer just exist. She would stand fiercely for her dreams. Yet, she could not shake the underlying question. What if they chose to sever their bonds? Would she brave the shadows of her past to embrace the full spectrum of her identity? As dawn broke and filled her room with light, Clara stood at the crossroads of her life. An artist or a dutiful daughter? The exhibition represented not merely a showcase of art, but a crucible of conflicting identities. She drew in a breath, ready to make her stand, unsure if it meant liberation or forfeiture. In the depths of her spirit, one truth surged. She must face the challenge head-on, where sacrifice and ambition intertwined. But as she ventured toward the truth waiting for her, one thing became clear. She could not walk this path. Before her lies uncertainty, an echoing call pulling her in directions unseen. Clara stood before the boar. Mirror, the morning light illuminating the determination etched on her face. The invitation to the exhibit lay on the counter, a tangible reminder of the choice looming ahead. Today could either signal the birth of her identity or the entrenchment of her doubts. She inhaled deeply, feeling the weight of her past pressing on her shoulders, as if it were a physical shroud. As she prepared herself, the colors of her work whispered to her, deep blues and vibrant yellows, the very palette resonating with her ambitions and fraught with her fears. Each stroke she had made in the previous weeks echoed in her mind, a rhythm of promise and turmoil. Standing polished and ready, she reflected not just on her physical appearance, but on who she had become, a woman bold enough to chase her calling. Clara's heartbeat quickened as she envisioned the upcoming confrontation. With each step towards the living room, she sensed the undercurrents of familial expectations, filled with unspoken judgments. Tommy still slumbered peacefully, oblivious to the storm brewing in their home. For a fleeting moment, she longed to withdraw into the serene world of motherhood, safeguarding him from any engulfing conflicts. Yet today, something propelled her to the forefront of her life instead. "Clara, you look different," her mother commented, her voice layered with skepticism as she assessed her daughter. "Are you going somewhere important?" The barbed tone, once so familiar, now ignited Clara's resolve. This subtle challenge demanded a response, an emergence of clarity that she couldn't ignore. "I am, Mom. I'm heading to the exhibit." Clara felt her feet anchored firmly against the linoleum floor. "And I plan to show my art." The silence that followed was deafening, each second an eternity. Her mother's expression shifted, a mix of disbelief and disapproval clouding her features. "What art? Do you really think this is wise? Tommy needs stability. You can't just—" "I can't just what?" Clara interrupted, her voice rising with mounting emotion. "I've spent so long accommodating everyone's expectations. I need to explore what it means to be me." Each word spilled out like paint splattering across a canvas, vibrant and unfiltered. Her mother's mouth opened as if to counter, but Clara didn't allow her a chance. "I can love Tommy and still pursue my passion. They're not mutually exclusive. I want him to see me thriving, not just surviving." The confession hung in the air, heavy yet liberating, completely unraveling the tether her mother had tried to tie around Clara's aspirations. Instead of retreating, she leaned into the momentum, aware that every moment spent in authenticity built a bridge for Tommy toward understanding who his mother truly was. The tension simmered below the surface, but an unfamiliar fire ignited within Clara, a realization that she could be the catalyst for change, not only for herself, but for Tommy too. She was no longer simply the dutiful daughter. She was embarking on her own unique journey. As she reached for her bag, her mother's words shifted, fraught with apprehension, but sprinkled with hesitant support. "I just want what's best for you, and for Tommy." "I know, and I appreciate that, but I have to try." Clara felt the familiar pang of guilt tightening in her chest, but beneath it was a burgeoning confidence, a belief that she was entitled to fulfill her desires. With that, she stepped into the brightness of the morning, the city pulsating around her. Clara knew she was crossing an invisible threshold, embracing the unknown. Her path was now one of resilience and resolve, an artistic journey intertwined with motherhood. But the question loomed larger than any canvas she could create. Would this new identity fracture her familial ties, or could it inspire those she loved to expand their vision of her life? As the headquarters of her heart beat in sync with 1,000 users of the city, she found herself at the precipice of not just her art, but a deeper evolution of self. With every heartbeat echoing her purpose, Clara realized that embracing her artistry meant wrestling with acceptance, one that both she and her family had to navigate in unison. And in that moment, imbued with a sense of hope and trepidation, she contemplated the myriad stories yet to surface from her brush. At the gallery, the anticipation swelled, and with it a thrilling thought. What would happen if she allowed herself to reveal everything? The unfiltered joy, the swirling fears, and the luminous artistry of her heart. As she approached the exhibit, her chest tightened, not from anxiety, but from the exhilarating thrill of possibility. The moment of truth was upon her, and as she stepped forward, she sensed she was ready to not just navigate art, but also the intricate tapestry of her own life. But just as she entered, she spotted her family in the crowd, a reflection of pride mixed with confusion. Would they understand? Would they see her? The specter of their expectations loomed, and with her heart pounding, Clara realized that the truest challenge was yet to come, the confrontation of beliefs at the heart of the night. Clara stepped into the gallery, the vibrant colors of her artwork swirling around her like a renaissance of emotions. Each piece whispered stories of her struggle and triumph, reflecting the spectrum of her journey. Glancing back at her family, she caught her mother's gaze, a mixture of pride and uncertainty clearly etched on her face. The sharp contrast of their expressions held Clara in a profound moment of introspection. Her heart raced, not from anticipation of applause, but from the fear of vulnerability. Would her art be seen as merely a pastime, or could it communicate the depth of her aspirations? This wasn't just an exhibit showcasing paint and canvas. It was a declaration of who she had become. As the crowd settled, murmurs of admiration flowed through the air, the sounds blurring into a symphony of encouragement. Clara felt the energy moving through her like electricity. But there was a palpable weight as well. Her family's expectations hung over her like a fog, dampening the vibrancy that surrounded her. Pushing through the initial waves of self-doubt, she approached her first painting, an untamed explosion of yellow and blue that mirrored her conflicting emotions. It felt like a mirror reflecting her every fear and hope. Clara answered the question streaming through her mind with silent resolve. This was no longer just her art. It was a bridge to self-acceptance and personal empowerment. Navigating through the crowd, she suddenly noticed a small group discussing her work. Their words, intertwined with interpretations and emotions, provided her a window into how her artistic voice resonated outside of her own mind. It was intoxicating to hear her feelings encapsulated in someone else's understanding. Clara realized for perhaps the first time that her art was a universal language bridging inner turmoil with collective experience. In the midst of her revelation, her eyes returned to her family. Tommy's small frame was dwarfed by the adults surrounding him, yet his bright eyes glimmered with wonder, unfazed by the environment. He was, after all, just a child, absorbing the world in his innocent way. Clara's gaze shifted to her mother, who struggled to process the scene before her. "Look at the colors, Mom," Clara whispered, the urgency in her voice tempered by tenderness. "Can you feel the joy?" Her mother's expression softened as she leaned closer, scrutinizing the interplay of hues. "I suppose it's different. Bold." Clara took a step back, feeling weight lift from her shoulders. "It's me. This is what I want to share. My joy, my journey, Mom. It's part of who I am now." The words hung in the air, heavy yet liberating. Could her mother understand that embracing this part of herself might not fracture their bond, but deepen it? The lock of shared history and expectation clashed with the need for individual growth, creating tension in the moment between them. As more attendees wandered over, Clara felt compelled to engage with them. Conversation sparked, questions flowed, and every response painted another stroke on the canvas of her emerging identity. The exhibition transformed into a dialogue, exchange woven with laughter and introspection. Each interaction felt monumental, shedding layers of fear that had once bound her to a conventional existence. But interference glistened in the back of her mind, a nagging feeling of what lay ahead. What if her family couldn't reconcile with her new identity? What if those she loved could still only see her through the filters of their expectations? As Clara spoke and moved through the crowd, each laughter echoed the strength she was discovering, but the shadow of future confrontation lingered. Amidst the whirlpool of excitement, Clara paused. In the vibrant colors all around her, she recalled her mother's skeptical remarks and felt the flicker of guilt rise again, shadowed by resolve. This was not just an exhibit. This was an awakening, an opportunity to embrace the full spectrum of who she was. Suddenly, she spotted an art critic stepping forward, his presence commanding immediate attention. Conversations hushed. All eyes turned towards Clara, and her heart raced with a mix of exhilaration and fear. The moment of truth was approaching, and along with it, the realization that this was more than art. This was a statement, a testament to her personal evolution, echoing the urgency of her transformative journey. Could this moment shift her family's perceptions? The thought hung in the air, a question poised on the edge of her burgeoning identity as she braced herself for his words. Would clarity emerge from his critique, or would uncertainty cloud the brilliance she sought to express? Clara's breath hitched, the room sinking into an anticipation so thick it felt as if time itself had paused. The art critic, sharp-eyed and meticulous, stepped closer. His expression was unreadable, a juxtaposition of authority and intrigue. Clara's mind raced ahead, contemplating countless potential outcomes, each possibility intertwining her art with her family's beliefs, her past with her present. She grappled with a sudden pull toward indecision. What if her work was misinterpreted? What if her mother remained the same in her view of her? "Well," the critic began, his voice resonating through the gallery. Clara held her breath. "This piece here, it is captivating. It encapsulates a rush of emotions, conflict, and catharsis." He gestured to her painting, the very one that mirrored her internal struggles. Clara felt a surge of pride at his words, but quickly checked it, wary of allowing affirmation to overshadow her purpose. "However," he continued, his gaze pinning her in place, "art like this demands vulnerability, and one must be prepared for the interpretation that follows." Clara swallowed hard. His words felt like a critical examination of not just her art, but of her hidden fears laid bare for all to see. Clara felt an overwhelming urge to respond, a need to affirm herself. "It reflects my journey," she managed to say, her voice finding conviction. "It's a piece of who I am, who I aspire to be." The critic nodded slowly, seemingly weighing the gravity of her statement. Clara's heart drummed at the sound of his silence, searching his face for any flicker of understanding. "So, tell me," he leaned in, "what does that journey mean to you?" The question wedged inside her thoughts, amplifying a reluctance to share too much. Vulnerability loomed dangerously close, yet amidst it flickered a light of opportunity. An opportunity to articulate her truth, to assert her ambition, not just to him, but to her family watching in the periphery. Clara inhaled deeply, taking a calculated risk. It's a process of self-realization. I've spent so long molding myself into what others expected, but through this art, I've uncovered the freedom to express my dreams, my individuality. A silence followed her confession, charged with weight. Her family's reactions rested heavily on her shoulders. What if they remained shackled to the past, allowing concern to taint their understanding? The art critic's features softened a fraction, revealing the slightest hint of admiration. That is what makes art powerful, its ability to transform both the creator and the observer. Clara wondered, could this critic advocate for her not just in the art world, but within the walls of her family's expectations too? As the dialogue shifted, Clara found herself drifting deeper into conversations with attendees, her message refining with each exchange. Ideas flowed, painting her thoughts with clarity. A question nagged, relentless yet urgent. Could they accept this transformation she was experiencing? In this environment of validation, it was easy to affirm herself to strangers. But her family? Would they understand her journey was not an abandonment of them, but an expansion of self? Less than an hour later, something unexpected occurred. Her mother approached, vulnerability written across her face, while Tommy clung to her side. Clara's breath caught. The gulf of familial expectations surged forward, ready to confront her newfound identity. Clara, her mother spoke, hesitancy lacing each syllable. I saw how you described your work. I want to understand. It felt like an invitation, yet the weight felt proportionate to the enormity of what she needed to share. Clara's heart raced again. This was a pivotal moment. To bridge her past with this evolution, she knew honesty was essential. It's more than art to me, Mom. It's my story. The door to dialogue lay ajar, and she felt drawn to step through. With the eyes of her family and the critic on her, she took a breath, ready to unveil the raw layers of her journey. Could this conversation forge an understanding, or further a rift? Clara stood on the cusp of a breakthrough, uncertain about which path would emerge. The gallery pulsed with life, all while the truth of her emotions stirred within, begging to be released. What awaited her on the other side of this moment? Clara's mind raced as her mother's eyes shimmered with anticipation, reflecting both concern and curiosity. The gallery around her faded momentarily, leaving only the weight of her truth, pressing down on her like the canvas on her easel during long hours of painting. Understand? Clara echoed softly, testing the word. It felt fragile, like a delicate thread pulling taut between them. She glanced over at Tommy, his small frame a constant reminder of the root she was tethered to. And yet, with each brushstroke toward self-discovery, that tether felt both vital and weighty. Yes, her mother replied, her voice steadier now. I want to know how you feel and why this work means so much. All I see are colors and shapes, she continued, but I don't understand the rest. Clara hesitated. There lay her narrative, ready to spring forth, yet the fear of misinterpretation loomed large. What if her mother's understanding never left the realm of aesthetics? Would that deepen the chasm between their worlds? She inhaled, filling her lungs with clarity. It represents the conflict I've felt, the struggle. I've always been your daughter, your expectations, your vision of me. But in this space, she gestured to the vibrant colors of her painting, I learned that I can also be myself, unsheltered, free from the roles I've been cast into. Her mother's brow furrowed, contemplating, and Clara seized the moment, propelled by a new determination. When I painted this, it was more than a reflection of chaos. It was my declaration of independence. I am embracing who I've always wanted to become, rather than who I was told to be. A flicker passed over her mother's face, perhaps recognition, perhaps fear. Clara hated that her evolution might instill fear. Then she recalled the critic's words about vulnerability. If she was to reach her family, she needed to lay bare her truth. I know you care about tradition and legacy, she pressed on, voice gaining strength, but can't you see how this journey isn't just about the art? It's about me reclaiming my narrative. I want to live authentically, to paint not just what's acceptable, but what feels alive to me. An electric silence followed. Clara's heartbeat echoed in her ears as she sought reassurance in her mother's expression. The critic, still by their side, observed, his interest piqued. Clara felt the scrutiny, but instead of crumbling under it, she found resolve. Is it really too much to ask for a space where I can be both your daughter and myself? Clara pressed, her voice breaking slightly, but filled with courage. Her mother took a step back, as if to create distance from the weight of Clara's words. But if you're not this daughter we envisioned, who are you becoming? The inquiry stunned Clara. It was raw, a direct confrontation with her fears. The expression on her mother's face was one of sorrow, perhaps tinged with fear of loss. Clara weighed her response, knowing this moment could either draw them closer or cause irreparable distance. I'm becoming a version of me that's always existed beneath the surface, she replied, voice steady. This journey doesn't erase my past. It builds upon it. My art shows that complexity. In that moment, Clara understood the transformation wasn't one-sided. As she fought to assert her own identity, she realized she was also inviting her family into that artwork, a spectrum of shades that could encompass all their fears and hopes. Suddenly, the critic interjected, lifting the tension in the air. What your daughter has shared is rich material. Understanding the artist's journey is crucial to witnessing the full impact of her work. I believe it speaks not only to her, but to the times we live in. Clara noted a sense of validation from his remarks, the promise of a potential alliance. Would her mother recognize this as an opening rather than a confrontation? Yet within this fragile moment of hope, an undercurrent of anxiety remained. Would she ultimately have to choose between her family's expectations and her own identity? Or could they coexist? With uncertainty coiling deep in her chest, Clara braced herself for whatever came next. As her mother processed the unfolding conversation, Clara's heart raced with a flicker of hope. Could this be the beginning of a shift? But even as that flicker grew, an anxious thought loomed. What if acceptance didn't come, not just from her mother, but from the very world Clara sought to embrace? Would the price of her transformation weigh heavier than expected? Clara recognized the stakes were high. She stood on the brink, poised to leap into an uncertain chapter, questioning if liberation would carry her burdens or dissolve them entirely. How could she navigate this uncharted territory of growth and acceptance without losing herself? The gallery buzzed around them, yet Clara felt the gravity of the moment. The swirling hesitation left her wondering what lay just beyond the horizon of her own evolution. Clara stood on the edge of an emotional precipice, her thoughts racing as her mother's reaction loomed heavily over her. The gallery, once a sanctuary, now felt like a stage set for a performance fraught with uncertainty. She couldn't escape the weight of her mother's question. Who was she becoming? The critic's presence lingered nearby, a reminder that the world was watching. Clara often felt the adrenaline of her artistry coursing through her, a rush that came from the freedom expressed on the canvas. But today, that excitement was tangled with the fear of being unmoored from familial expectations. She was battling her own history while standing in the shadow of her mother's dreams. In the swirl of the gallery, an unexpected resolve began to crystallize within her. The critic's gaze had shifted from skepticism to intrigued fascination, a budding alliance that could prove pivotal in Clara's journey. She silently conjured up another whispered mantra of guidance she'd read once during an artist's retreat. Create authentically without fearing the implications. Taking a breath steeped in renewed determination, Clara moved to her painting, hands outstretched as if physically pulling the colors toward her. "You see this chaos?" she asked, voice softer but firm as she gestured to the swirling pigments. "It's me sorting through what's expected and what's real. The strokes might seem random, but in them I find clarity. It's the struggle to disentangle myself from what I feel is imposed. I want my work to be a mirror, reflecting not just beauty, but the raw essence of my journey." With each word, Clara crafted a bridge, hoping to connect her internal landscape with her mother's apprehension. "It's a confrontation," she pressed on, "a reckoning with the roles that bind us. Can you understand the significance of that battle?" Her mother remained stoically silent, yet Clara could see her digesting the weight of her words. Their eyes met, and the pause felt like a stretch of canvas, both waiting for paint to determine the shape of their future relationship. In that silence, Clara recognized the fork in her own path. Choice lay ahead, not just concerning her art, but who she would become on a broader canvas of life. Yet uncertainty sliced through her resolve like a jagged brush on a delicate surface. What if her mother couldn't let go of the identity she had crafted for Clara? What if her courage to share left them further estranged? Each scenario unfurled in her mind like those chaotic splashes of color, each one vivid but disorganized, making it difficult to see the complete picture. Suddenly, she felt an impulse to shift her focus away from fear toward action. What if she could create not for the approval of others, but as a declaration of her own worth? The critic's earlier observations echoed a call to arms, harnessing the turbulence of her personal evolution as fuel for her artistic fire. "Mother, each brushstroke is a piece of me daring to claim space. This isn't just about art, it's about growth, both for me and for you. If I am to become who I truly am, I need your support. Can we explore this together?" A flicker of hope ignited in her chest, mingling with the uncertainty. It was a daring invitation that required her mother to step into the unknown alongside her. Clara's breath caught as she considered the weight of what she was asking. But one truth resonated firmly within her. Embracing uncertainty was the necessary path to authentic creation. As time hung in the balance, an unexpected thought destabilized her newfound clarity. What would happen if the acceptance she sought revealed itself to be fleeting or conditional? Was Clara prepared to face her fears repeated if this venture into authenticity didn't yield the nurturing environment she craved? With her heart racing and future in the air, she realized she was standing on the precipice of something monumental. Would she truly have the courage to embrace her art and identity, whatever cost they came with? Clara's fingers itched to paint the contours of her reality anew. A vivid portrait of independence and identity awaited. "May I dare to leap?" she asked herself quietly, as her mother's expression softened, hinting at a shift. Would that shift be enough for Clara to embrace her journey fully? The tension shifted like oils blending on her palate, and Clara felt the weight of the moment, the stillness before the storm of transformation. It was time for a decision. Would she seize this moment, or would the fear paralyze her? The stakes were high, and the next step loomed large on Clara's horizon. The gallery pulsed with energy, a silent witness to the culmination of her courage. What awaited on her path of artistic liberation? Acceptance, challenge, or perhaps something altogether unexpected? Clara's heart raced as her mother's gaze lingered on her, and the charged silence weighed heavily in the air. In that moment, the distance between them seemed insurmountable. Yet Clara could feel the echo of her own words reverberating in her chest, urging her forward. It was clear that this was no ordinary conversation. It was a catalyst for change, a potential spark igniting the fires of transformation within them both. With a mixture of trepidation and fierce determination, Clara stepped closer to her mother. "I can't keep painting in someone else's image," she insisted, her voice steady. "What blooms in me must both frighten and exhilarate you. This is my reckoning, but it doesn't have to divide us. We could weave a new narrative together." Her mother's lips parted slightly, as though she was searching for words that hovered just out of reach. A shadow of vulnerability flickered across her features, and for the first time, Clara wondered if perhaps the expectations that had been so firmly planted were rooted more in fear than desire. It was a reflection Clara hadn't anticipated. In that moment, the roles of daughter and mother felt more intricate, tangled in their shared history. This awareness settled like soft paint on Clara's canvas, revealing the nuances of her mother's apprehensions. She paused, reassessing the impulse to press further. Instead, she chose to create space for dialogue rather than monologue. "Can we talk about what you hope to see for me?" Clara asked gently, her tone shifting from fiery determination to soft inquiry, drawing her mother into the conversation. The critic's eyes, still observing, felt like a spotlight illuminating this intimate exchange. Clara could sense the weight of external judgment mixed with an almost palpable anticipation of the resolve brewing within her mother. This was the arena where artistic liberation would not only demand her courage, but would also call for understanding and empathy from those she loved. "I want you to be safe, Clara. Art can—" Her mother's voice trailed off. "It can hurt." Clara felt a knot in her stomach twist. The untruths of the past echoed back. The times when her mother's fears had dictated Clara's decisions, casting shadows on her artistic ambitions. Yet without those struggles, she wouldn't be standing now, on the brink of self-discovery. "And it can heal," Clara countered softly, her hands gesturing toward her painting. "Every brushstroke you see is a testament to my resilience, to the difficult colors I selected that made the final work beautiful." The dialogue stretched between them, a fragile bridge gaining strength. Here lay the potential for a shared understanding, a place where vulnerability met courage. Clara sensed the rhythm of their exchange could reshape not only her future, but her mother's perception of what it meant to be a supportive figure. Yet shadows of doubt loomed in the corners of Clara's mind. Would her mother fully embrace this opportunity for a fresh start, wiping the slate clean of imposed narratives and stepping into a mutual exploration? Could their differing perspectives coexist without setting off tidal waves once again? Clara took a decisive step back, drawing in a deep breath. "If we can communicate openly, I am willing to face whatever storms come our way. But I need you with me. This journey is about reclaiming my identity, not just for myself, but perhaps for you too." Clara's heart thrummed with a newfound sense of purpose. The fluid strokes of her artistry symbolized her inner turmoil, but also her hope. She could not create authentically without understanding her own fears and recognizing her mother's. The connection she sought wouldn't be easy, but the mirror held the promise of healing if they dared to look deeper. The critic, now an intrigued observer, seemed to await the unraveling of this profound moment. Clara could feel the energy in the room thrum, transforming the weight of expectation into a current of possibility. Could this conversation lead to revelation or rejection? The uncertainty sparked something within Clara, a fierce resolve to keep pushing boundaries, not just for herself, but as an invitation for her mother to share in that space of vulnerability. The decision is ours to make together. Can we commit to this transformation no matter the discomfort it may bring? As she posed the question, Clara felt the room shift, charged with anticipation. What came next could very well redefine everything she had known. Would her mother take her hand and step into the vibrant chaos of authenticity? Or would they remain tethered to their past, afraid to paint a new horizon? The moment hung in the balance, dramatic, profound, and filled with a stirring urgency, just waiting for the brush to apply the next stroke. Clara's heart thudded in her chest as the silence stretched out. Her mother's brow furrowed, processing the weight of Clara's challenge. Clara held her breath, warmth flooding through her veins as the tiniest hint of understanding dawned in her mother's eyes. This could be it, an opportunity to rewrite their story. With a sudden vulnerability, her mother ran a hand through her hair and looked down at the floor. "I always thought I was protecting you," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. The honesty in her tone struck Clara like a blow, reverberating in the air between them. "Protecting me from what?" Clara hesitated, inviting her mother to go deeper. As soon as the question left her lips, a shadow passed over her mother's face. It was an expression Clara recognized well. Fear rooted in her own childhood experiences. "What if your art doesn't find an audience?" Her mother's words were tinged with a tremor. "What if I couldn't help you when the world turned its back?" Clara felt a jab of frustration. "But that's the risk, Mom." She stepped forward, needing to penetrate this bubble of anxiety that encased their conversation. "What if your fear is creating a self-fulfilling prophecy?" She wasn't just challenging her mother, she was confronting what had become her own limitations. The air crackled with tension, words wrapped in a complexity that seemed to swirl into a whirlwind of emotions. Clara would not let fear dictate her life any longer, not hers and not her mother's either. As she gazed into her mother's eyes, Clara saw the flicker of change. There was something in her expression, confusion intermingled with glimmers of hope. "Maybe you're right," her mother murmured, vulnerability casting a new light on her solemn features. "But it's easy to shut down," Clara replied, quickly glancing at the canvas behind her as if it could speak. "What if we approach this together, gradually?" This suggestion hung heavy in the air. Clara could sense her mother weighing options, teetering on the edge of acceptance or retreat. The moment felt pivotal. "I've been so afraid of loss that I forgot to embrace the journey," her mother finally admitted. Clara's heart swelled, knowing she had struck a chord. The words reverberated with a truth well remembered, yet often dormant. She was rediscovering not only her own resolve, but also manipulating the tapestry of their emotional connection. "What if we make this process a collaboration?" Clara ventured, her voice steadying. "Let's explore creating together. We can challenge the fears that bind us. You can give your insight while I express myself. We sketch, we paint, we flourish." Her mother's gaze softened, and the air grew lighter. "But, Clara, what if you don't need me?" Clara considered this. Did she need her mother's guidance, or did she seek mutual affirmation? "I think I need us both," she replied, a new softness settling in her tone. "The world of art can be a reflection of our experiences. I want to share that journey with you." The flicker of excitement was infectious, filling the room as they briefly shared a renewed smile. Clara realized that each exchange could paint a path toward healing, one brushstroke at a time. "Let's start small," her mother suggested, a tentative smile breaking through. "Perhaps I can help you choose colors or themes for your next project." Clara's spirits surged at the suggestion. They could combine threads of their identities, intertwining the past with the future while carving out a shared canvas. "Yes, colors can tell stories," Clara replied enthusiastically. "And you have an eye for that. Let's explore. I want to create something that resonates." In that moment, the ties of their shared history transformed into shared motivation. The lines between expectation and aspiration began to blur as Clara contemplated not only her own artistic journey, but the renewed bond forming with her mother. Yet a shadow loomed as Clara remembered the critic lurking in the periphery, waiting for their next move, a reminder that the world beyond their dialogue still held judgment. "Are you prepared for the criticism?" Clara asked, her voice lowering. Her mother's confidence faltered just briefly. What if it stings? Clara made a decision then. Then we'll face it together. After all, every art piece rides on the edge of vulnerability. In that moment, they both understood that their journey would test their resilience and their relationship. It would not be easy, but every stroke of vulnerability would pave the way for a richer narrative. They began to converse about colors and themes, an exhilarating potential course through Clara. The path ahead shimmered with uncertainty, but also infinite possibilities. What revelation awaited them on their collaborative journey? Would they emerge stronger, or would the shadows of past fears loom once more? Clara felt a gripping breath of urgency, a prelude to the emotional storms yet to unfold. How far could they plunge into this artistic endeavor, and would they truly heal from within? Clara stood before her easel in the vibrant studio she'd created within her apartment. The sunlight streamed through the window, casting an ethereal glow on the canvas that had begun to transform under her deft fingers. This time, she felt ready not just to put paint to canvas, but to share her journey, a testament to the intricate dance of motherhood and artistic passion intertwined. As she painted, the creative energy radiated within her, echoing the chapters of her life. Each brushstroke resonated with newfound confidence, resonating with her decision to forge a path that embraced both her identity as an artist and a devoted mother. Clara was fully aware of the expectations placed upon her, yet she now wielded a brush poised to redefine those definitions, the realms of her existence no longer limited. Today, her mother would join her in this creative endeavor. They had spent hours discussing colors and themes, finding a common ground in their shared fears and dreams, sketching the beginnings of a joint piece reflecting a tapestry of their complex connection. Clara felt the anticipation rise within her. This collaboration could serve not only as a cathartic experience, but as a bridge toward authentic understanding. With a sense of purpose, Clara dove into her art, layering colors with intention and heart. It was exhilarating. Every stroke challenged her, but each moment pressed closer to her mother's promise of support. As the canvas began to breathe, so too did their relationship. Clara could feel the air shift. Their discussions no longer tinged with tension, but rather laden with possibility. Weeks passed, and the piece began to take shape. Tommy, now actively encouraged to explore creativity, played nearby with his own set of paints. Every laughter and squeal sent ripples of joy through Clara's heart. She was not simply pursuing her art. She was crafting a legacy of resilience and inspiration for him. In cultivating her identity, she was also cultivating an environment where Tommy felt seen and heard. Their collaborative creation slowly transformed into a colorful garden, the colors telling stories of their fears, hopes, and the beauty found in vulnerability. Clara's mother infused strokes of warmth and earthiness, while Clara poured her passions and dreams onto the canvas. As they worked together, fragmented memories of past tensions hung in the air, but they gradually morphed into an understanding that deepened the layers of this relationship. The day of the gallery exhibition approached, and the weight of anticipation clung to Clara like a second skin. This would not be an event solely showcasing her individual journey. It would illuminate the shared triumphs of vulnerability, healing, and acceptance. The final reveal was no longer just about her identity, but a manifestation of hope, a testament to intergenerational growth. Clara stood beside her mother at the gallery, both of them breathing in the palpable energy of the audience surrounding them. Their piece hung prominently, its vibrant blend of colors striking yet reflective, a story crafted from their souls. Clara's heart raced, tangling with excitement and apprehension as the crowd began to admire what they had created together. "People are talking about it," her mother whispered, the pride lacing her voice tangible. Each praise echoed like a heartfelt applause, and Clara felt the rush of emotions churning within her. This moment held a significance far beyond the acclaim of artistry. It represented their journey, a shared commitment to understanding, honesty, and the power of vulnerability. As the evening unfolded, voices echoed around them, inquiries about themes, discussions about meanings, and heartfelt reflections. Clara engaged with each person, eagerly imparting the journey that brought her to this moment. Yet, amid the powerful acknowledgement, she could sense a hushed apprehension from her mother, lingering doubts of the future that didn't want to fade. Taking a deep breath, Clara turned to her mother. "You've seen the response, right? They're connecting with the story. Can't you feel that?" Her mother nodded slowly, an emotional realization crossing her face. "I do, Clara, and I'm proud. The fear I carried felt so heavy, and now I see how embracing that fear has granted us this freedom." As the evening continued, Clara knew they had emerged from the shadows. No longer were they constrained by expectations, but instead buoyed by each other's courage. Together, they had conquered the chaos of their pasts, uncovered a vibrant future they crafted side by side. And as the applause rings louder and brighter that night, Clara felt an immersive peace surging within her. Not only had she redefined her identity, she had molded their bond into something resilient and capable, a legacy of mutual understanding woven into a canvas of colors. Clara could finally claim her position as both artist and mother, having achieved genuine acceptance. The transformation that sprang from the echo of a forgotten sketchbook had matured into a resounding chorus of reclaimed identity. Standing in the gallery, her heart swelled not merely with artistry, but with the profound realization that she had not only surrendered to herself, but had extended an invitation for her family to join her in a world reborn. Now richer, now deeper. As she took her mother's hand, a warm smile illuminated both their faces. Clara silently vowed to remain authentic, empowered, and boundlessly brave in every stroke her life would command. This was just the beginning. You need to subscribe now to capture every moment in this transformative journey. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us share more stories. Comment below with your reactions, thoughts, and theories about how Clara's journey impacts you. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see what it means to reclaim your identity. Don't wait even one more second to spread the inspiration.